What's up, beautiful people? What's up? Asian Provocateurs and Media PSYOPS and the criminalization pipeline of indigenous youth. This is live X Spaces talk number. Well, side note. This is side note. Right now, I was going to do something else, but this came to attention of state of emergency and national indigenous people. Dr. Aha El Bay, ready, trademark holding. Peace and strength to everyone. Tonight, well, this evening, Asian provocateurs and media psyops and criminalization pipelines of indigenous youth. This is not entertainment. This is analyzing this legal literature. This is community protection. What I'm addressing is how indigenous youth are being psychologically programmed socially to redirect and legally trapped through corporate and coordinated cultural condition systems. I examine as the media behavior engineered administration identity erasure and criminal liability traps and what we must do immediately. If you are a parent, a mentor, elder, or a young person, and this conversation is for you for sure. Melanated and rich, especially indigenous people. Talk to non and talking to people. So, what is media psyops? Psychological operations are structural influence campaigns to design to modify um, perceptions and behaviors. Historically, psyops were military tools and tactics to use. Unfortunately, today, unfortunately, they operate through music algorithms, streaming platforms and somewhat loopholes in the street, corporate orchestrated provocateurs, psyops, media processing, and they are videos to influence, emotional, economics, and viral cycles. When a young person is here and hears the same lyrics themselves hundreds of times per week, and myself as an expertise as a music producer, I know these things and sound engineer as well. It's not random exposure, it's identity imprinting. So reputation creates normalization. So when criminal enterprise and enthuse on the flashy cash and risk behavior weaponry displays loyalty narratives and hyper masculinity scripts that provides these type of tactics in their process, and this is why most of them get these deals and things of this nature. It's a brain stimulation and a brain tactic to function at executive level to stream the scriptural algorithm implantment. The young generation discourages the lineage of reinforce and create culture of detachments rich thresholds. So this will be collapsed, and this how is collapse being misaligned. Peer evaluations and legal consequences and minimalization and maximization, where the trap begins. Okay, so online personas becomes more behavior rehearsal. The action becomes a charge. Segmentizing this through identity, racial administration, warfare. This is not new. As we talk about Walker Plecker, changing the name frames and then to 1988, which is African American, things of this nature, and the Removal Act, Indian Removal Act, things of this nature. The erasure of the indigenous identity through paperwork and classification system that has deep perspectives and deep perspective and preciseness, based on Walker Plecker, of course, as a star register classification of indigenous family into racial categories that eliminate their tribal or clans. That's what we really call them. Identity from official records. That's how you get the land grabs and things of this nature. Behavior characteristics. Birth certificate change, census beds, shelves, and lineages documentation has collapsed. So what this means today and why does this matter today? Because courts and intake systems still rely on race code and classification instead of nationhood and recognition. So when a young youth indigenous enter a courtroom, they are also perceived as a racial demographic, not as a member of a sovereign people or the original people that was here, found here. We may call it Aboriginal, but with Aborigine people. For the record, when you see the emblem of America is just what they'll look like. The color copy races of people that was already found here. They call them misnomer and call them black. There's no treaty argument and consideration, which is all of them been broken, and cultural informing immigration and not sovereignty aggregations. So identity basis defense framework. So this is that's what this come in liability system and themselves is strategically precise on reducing the profile risk of the youth to be sustainable living for all people versus like how to build their own homes, things of that nature, how to grow their own crops, things of this nature, or in that case with covered in a previous situation, putting on a criminal pipeline, misleading them. The discussion itself. So that's a whole nother thing, particularly relevant to the California West jurisdiction. There's a legal trap for people who fall into these repeated constructed oppression. And this is something legal and in a vehicle that's being used for the space to control and also to damage and infringe on the imprint of the indigenous people, the autochthonous people here in America. Look what autochthonous mean. Okay. Admins in if it assists someone if who is committed a crime, eventually is indirect or it may be changed as a like a principal actor. That's where the lawyer and jurisdiction is, so called, and judge, so called. And then we go to the conspiracy liability. Agreement along some things like refers to escalation, damages, and dramatic change. So here is the model setup, like the modern day setup, right? A young person is asked, drive me somewhere, hold this package, use the card, and just to make that drop, right? And then so in the mind, they involve or they are being tactical, being in a position where they try to threaten their families, kidnap things, murders, doing everything bad, this involves not just pretending the perception of helping, but also putting the self destruction and accountability of their participation. The law does not operate intentionally alone for this, and one of the systems that doesn't work out for us very well. And in the operation of proportional control and association, the prosecutor builds case use like this through text and social media, general location data, music, lyrics, and group photos, things of this nature. But technology that's now being released on your smartphones. So aesthetically become evidence, right? So a persona becomes a particular examination and exhibit. So now a young indigenous person carrying a felony record before 21, there goes that damn pipeline. And then that just brings me back to Chicago. How that pyramid for the young jurisdictions is in a pyramid form. Mm. Saying that hits where it hurts, right? Segmentation and propaganda, right? And agent provocateurs. So the agent provocateur is someone who is affiliated with a group and provokes illegal actions to justify suspensions and or oppress a said particular person or group or an statistic. Historically used against activism movements or people who stand for righteousness or law mayat. Provokers can be influenced through figures and escalations, tactics, and interference in breaking all federal codes and treaties. Individuals push this to like transportation peers or to provoke some type of fake ass loyalty ship and online risks to monetize them to self destruction. So this teaches youth not to be just sentenced. This teaches youth like this is probably this is their righteous past. This is bullshit because they live in luxury off of your pain and suffering. Pressures in the red flag and urgency red flag is the seniority. So this is a magnetic signal in our case in our library undermining like ops of American war on indigenous people. So the countermeasures is like we move from awareness to action. That's why I say, let's get off this conversation and put our resources together and help these young individuals in the right way. I really want to say the ones who's up there, the chiefs, because they have the most knowledge and power to actually communicate on a mature level versus dialogue that can be diluted through street affairs that's not being virtually passed for all the knowledge that prove these process other than a biased situation. So parents' orientations and Indigenous youth mentoring prepares the court observation team to public announce the high risk jurisdiction to stop. But now we want to not just stop; we actually have to have accountability. It's not the stop system. It's the person who's actually doing it and the AP participants. So offline engagements involve and the algorithm influence such as these things trying to benefit off these people, pain and suffering. It's not actually helping these individuals, but you monopolizing off their pain and suffering. So, youth people listening, yeah, you are not. You're not a statistic, okay? You're not an algorithm content, and you are not don't feel like you displaced or disposable, okay? We love you. Oh, we are here. We doing as much as in our powers, but well, this is a time that we already have a lot of people like you that see this as a glory or a ray of passage. So incarcerations increase this and build narratives and around this process. So protect yourself, protect us, stand strong. Do not transport unknown goods and things of this nature, and let your prior pursuit stay strong and move forward. And as we move forward, walk away from those type of agent provocateurs tactics if you possibly can. Seek out individuals like us and more perspective. That's why we hold on accountability for the people who are doing this, rah rah stuff on YouTube and all the social groups and stuff, and they're like just creating groups, or are we really creating governments? Because this is stuff is in field work most of the time, and most of the time in structure, which I do lay out in the architectural environment and execution. And so behavior becomes more legal exposure. So when legal exposure becomes permanent record, so we want to break that cycle that influence these stages. Okay, so we want to launch the PSA, reach out in California, okay? Because you can see what's going on and what's going on in our Turtle Island, which is our backyard and the turtle sail of this continent. Indigenously in our countries. Indigenously in the network, we have to create this process from the east to west and north. And I'm in the eastern woodlands, air diaspora field, and that's where I was born and raised. But over there, we have to take care of that western hemisphere as well. So let's build, connect, and stay strong. This is AHA working on the law of Mayat for the scales balance and the peers on indigenous people for indigenous alignment and action, protect the youth, protect the future, and will surpass generational thinking. Surpass generational thinking. One love.